This is Saturday Morning Mysteries.
And we're your hosts, Alexis and Grace.
Anyways, welcome to Saturday Morning Mysteries. A very, sad episode because we're not together this time like we were for our last two. A very special episode because we're recording on a weekday. We usually record on Sundays, but we're doing a after work recording.
Late
so
night.
We'll see.
Late happy hour recording sesh, except it's not happy hour. There's no alcoholic beverages anywhere. Or are there?
Like
no.
More coffee.
Yeah. It's like, what is in this coffee cup? I don't know. It's coffee. It's literally just coffee. Even though it's nighttime, it's still coffee. It's been that kind of day, friends and audience members.
Exactly. Which is why it'll be a very special episode for our weekday brains.
Yes.
And who is our weekday brains, by the way? It's us, your hosts. I'm Grace.
And I'm Alexis.
And we're here to tell you another tale about our dear friends, Rescue Rangers. We've got a couple more. Oh, that's really good on time.
Wasn't it?
For us.
Yeah.
And now we're just snapping loudly.
We can do it again, right? If we do it like 1,000 more times, one of them will be in unison.
For anyone who went to high school with us, who's listening or watching this, probably just had like a PTSD flashback because that's when we started our trend of always trying to be offbeat in any setting possible. So if you're ever with us and there's a song that people are getting into and clapping, we're gonna go against the grain, aka be entirely offbeat. We're gonna ruin everybody's good time for our own amusement.
Right. Literally, people always just kind of stare at us too, like, what are you doing? Like, Alexis, you're a musician. Grace, you have great taste in music. Like, you've played instruments too. What is happening?
And we're just like laughing just to ourselves.
We can. Anyways,
so here we are with more Chippendale Rescue Rangers. And it's a story from Alexis today. So I will pass
it is
to you, friend.
Indeed, it is a story from me. And I'm going to jump right in because as per usual with Chippendale Rescue Rangers, there are a lot of moving parts. And I managed to put a lot of great wild speculation into this episode. Yay. So I'm going to get us just rolling here. The episode that I am talking about today. Buckle in. Layer up. Get comfy.
It's too hot to layer up right now.
Oh, true. Yeah, as I'm wearing like this thick ass fleece Patagonia.
We don't have AC in the Pacific Northwest, so I just turned my fan off, and that's in my office. So you're gonna slowly see me just starting to sweat more and more through this episode.
This is fine. But anyway, so the episode I'm talking about today of Rescue Rangers. You're going to love this, Grace. It is called Does Pavlov Ring a Bell?
That's very clever.
Isn't it good? I was like very excited. I think I texted you a couple of days ago too. Like, I'm so excited to record this week because this episode actually is really good. I have willingly, not just for purposes of working on this script in today's episode, I have willingly gone back and rewatched it because I actually think it's a pretty entertaining episode. Okay. So it's season 1, episode 31. If you're watching on Disney Plus, season 2, episode 18, everywhere else. And it came out November 2nd, 1989. And so as many of you listening or watching probably heard, this title is a play on the phrase Pavlov's dog. And so that phrase, gonna get nerdy here for a second, aka half researched, aka truncated spark notes, aka like first couple paragraphs of the Wikipedia page on Pavlov. All that. So the phrase, I will use a big word here though. It is a colloquial reference to the term classical conditioning, aka Pavlovian or respondent conditioning. And it was first studied in detail by Ivan Pavlov. Big shocker, right? The name.
Named it after himself.
He did. Those psychologists or whatever. So vain. But anyway, so Ivan, he's a Soviet Russian physiologist, actually not a psychologist. And he conducted these experiments that became known as Pavlov's dog or whatever. No shocker again, with dogs. And he recorded his findings in 1897. And so essentially, classical conditioning, I'm going to get kind of into the weeds here very quickly, but I'm going to super like layman's terms it in a second. Okay. But I just felt like I needed to be nerdy and explain like the actual scientific phrases, at least as Wikipedia presents them. So essentially,
like respondent something. I don't know what that means.
Yeah, respondent. So I'll get to it. Kind of that word in particular.
I won't ask more questions in case you didn't write down the answer. Sorry.
Yeah, wait till I get to the end to ask questions so you know what I even read about. I didn't read that much. I'm not an expert in this shit. I literally just did enough to like take up 5 to 10 minutes of the podcast. Anyway, essentially classical conditioning occurs when a conditioned stimulus is paired with an unconditioned stimulus. And the conditioned stimulus is usually something like, or at least in his experiments, it was something like a sound, for example, a bell or a whistle. And the unconditioned stimulus is usually like a reward of some sort, like food or a treat. And so then you're also looking for the unconditioned response to the unconditioned stimulus, which is then described as an unlearned reflex, such as salivating. So when the conditioned stimuli, the bell, is repeatedly paired with the unconditioned stimuli, the food, the organism, aka a dog, is going to begin to exhibit a conditioned response to the stimulus, to the conditioned stimulus, even when the conditioned stimulus is presented alone. In other words, because even rereading this 1,000 times and copying it down from Wikipedia, I was like, this is using the same word a lot over and over, and I don't know what's going on.
Different versions of conditioned.
Exactly. Conditioned, unconditioned, stimuli, blah, blah. So in other words, super layman's terms, scientist has a dog, scientist rings a bell in front of the dog, and then gives the dog food. Repeat over and over and over and over and over many times. But then do it again, ring the bell, and don't give the food. However, doggo will still be salivating even when the bell rings because doggo is so used to food coming right after the bell rings. This is because doggo has been conditioned to believe that food always comes after a bell. I do actually wonder how it would have worked with some other animals. I mean, I think a cat would probably still generally respond the same way. It would probably just take a lot more trials.
It'd have to be like a very food motivated cat.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah. And I am so glad that you just used the word motivated because that word is going to be very important later on in this episode too.
We're always on the same page. Okay.
Yeah, boom, as per usual, whatever. Mm-hmm. But anyway, so this episode, it actually does have a bit to do with those famous classical conditioning experiments. But as per usual, the writers are mostly, Grace, as you said at the beginning, they're just using the title to get your attention. It works. Pretty much. And as like kind of a clever play on words. And of course, they take many creative liberties in depicting classical conditioning, if you can even call it that in this episode. But it does tie in. So unfortunately, while I wish the episode did just deal with the rescue rangers helping out a bunch of doggos, alas, it does not.
Are there any dogs in this episode?
No. There are not. I know, right? That's so I'll admit it's a bit misleading. I kind of wanted to sue for misrepresentation. That's fraud as far as
I've been misled.
Yeah.
I'm experiencing
emotional distress. Yes. Intentional infliction of emotional distress from Walt Disney Company. They're gonna just like they're gonna hear this and then just like send us a cease and desist or something. Like, take our names out of your mouth.
Oh man. Give us our dogs.
Yeah, we're just joking. But anyway, interestingly enough, work brain catching up with me now. The episode does actually focus more on something else that has been a bit of a hot topic for the past few years that perhaps, Grace, you will particularly be interested in.
Okay.
Have you heard of the company Boston Dynamics?
No.
No. Okay. Boston Dynamics. So some of our audience members may have if they're into engineering and robotics and whatnot, but Boston Dynamics.
You just gave me way too much credit for ever thinking I would know a robotics company.
It's because it's from Boston.
Just 'cause I live in Boston?
Yeah, literally.
Okay.
That's the only reason why. And I don't know, it's like kind of in the news too. And I do you watch Black Mirror? No. Okay. Well, damn. That's all right.
Explain it. I was just saying thank you for the unintentional compliment that you'd think I would know what that is.
True. Yes, exactly. You're smart. So I think but it's cool. It's all good. So anyway, Boston Dynamics, it's an engineering and robotics company that was founded in 1992. Great year. The second best year after 1993.
Really just like a couple week period at the end of 92 and the start of 93 is the best.
Yeah. December of 1992 through the rest of 1993 was great. Perfect. So anyway, Boston Dynamics, it was founded as a spinoff actually from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT. And the company is known for the development of a series of dynamic, highly mobile robots, including such names as Big Dog, Spot, Atlas, and Handle. And Big Dog and Spot, if you couldn't tell, those robots, I believe, are both shaped like dogs. Okay. Atlas, I can't remember what Atlas is. Atlas is like a humanoid robot. So 2 legs, 2 arms, whatever. And Handle, I don't remember what it is. But essentially, these robots, they can be used for anything. Like people can do household chores with them and stuff, theoretically. But the main client of Boston Dynamics, it appears, and like their target audience, not gonna lie, at least according to Wikipedia, which is where I got all of this information. Their main client pretty much is like police forces in the military. God damn it. So, I had a horrible feeling that was going to be the answer. Yep. So you can imagine what these highly mobile, like fast moving and able to maneuver into tight and small space robots and can like lift and carry heavy amounts of things. You can imagine what they're being used for. ... So
what is this Rescue Rangers episode?
I told you to buckle up. Did you not listen?
I acted like I buckled up, but really I was in the backseat of an Uber, so I just didn't do it. Now I really will.
You thought you were safe. It was fine. The headrest in front of me will protect me. No, so the reason, though, too, why I brought up Black Mirror, some of our fans may watch that. Some of our fans, look at me saying that. Hey, I mean, I guess we have fans. I meant to say audience members, though. That made me sound very, some of our fans listening, they may also be fans of the show Black Mirror. And I hate that I can't remember the name of the episode, but there were robots inspired by Big Dog and Spot, the robots made by Boston Dynamics, in one of those episodes. And let me tell you, in my opinion, like that show can get pretty creepy. That was probably one of the most chilling episodes for me to watch. I'm so sad I can't remember the name of it. There aren't that many episodes of the show. So if you haven't watched it, go check it out. You'll find it. It's a great show. Every episode is amazing. So you'll like all of it on the way to whatever episode actually does include these robots. But essentially they're like murder robots if you want them to be. So what the fuck does Boston Dynamics have to do with all of this? Well, dear audience, because today the Rescue Rangers are going to take on the tall order of fighting off some giant robotic animals.
What?
What indeed?
Oh, God.
Giant robotic animals. So let's get into it, shall we?
Okay.
It is a dark night. Shall we? That was a question. That was a question. Shall we? Are you ready?
We shall. Cool. I need to see where this goes.
It is a dark night in New York City, where we assume the Rescue Rangers are headquartered. And we see a security guard doing his late night walkthrough at the First Federal National City Bank.
That's a very long name.
It's a very long name.
What's
they literally
acronym?
They threw all the generic stuff in. So it's like, no trademark infringement here. Look at all these. Smart, everything is descriptive and generic. Boom. So anyway, as he's doing his patrol through this long name bank, the phone actually begins to ring after hours. Clearly, the security guard, he didn't have that many threats to assess that night because he decided, hey, okay, I'll pick up the phone. So he answers, but hears no voice on the other line. Instead, he hears just this spine-chilling, prolonged, loud whistling. And so he like shrieks like, stupid kids, like jokesters, and hangs. Yeah, thinking it's a prank call. And he slams the phone down. But right as he slams the phone down, the actual like alarm system in the bank starts to go off too. And so he's looking around the bank. He's running around. He's got his flashlight out, trying to look in every corner, looking at all the doors, at the windows and everything. But he's getting very confused because he can't find any intruders or where any intruders would have entered the bank. And so he's looking around, freaking out. And the ground beneath him actually starts to shake and rumble like an earthquake, but not an earthquake outside, an earthquake inside of the bank. And the shaking, it forces him to the ground, and he's like laid out on his back. And the flooring in front of him, as he's laid down, just breaks apart and falls down into, I guess, like the basement or whatever. It would be absolutely frightening. Yeah. But it gets even scarier because out of this hole that is formed in the floor of the bank climbs a giant robotic guinea pig.
Wait,
which to be fair, I actually thought it was a dog when I first watched the episode, which is why I was very excited to tie in the Boston Dynamics stuff. But then later on, I was like, oh God, no, that's a guinea pig. That's kind of cute. When
you say big, like compared to a human, how big is this robot guinea pig? Or is it guinea pig size?
When it's giant, like when it stands its two legs, it's probably about the height of the security guard. And this is like a big dude who's a security guard. Yeah, no, it's not guinea pig size. It's a giant robot. So it's big, horrible, terrifying, even though it is shaped and designed to look like an adorable guinea pig with, I have to add, like it had a red sweatband on. Like, I mean, I don't think it was like an actual sweatband, but it was like a paint design of a red sweatband around his head. And it has like these very shiny light blue LED lights. Honestly, much like my LED lights back here, like just like coming out of the eyes. And so the next scene takes us to what I assume is Grand Central Park, where apparently the Ranger hideout is located. I don't know. Okay. We know that they live in New York. The camera zooms in on this ginormous park. The Ranger hideout is in the tree. Are there any other ginormous parks in the middle of, I was going to say in the middle of Central, in the middle of New York City?
Work brain.
Yeah, exactly. Thank y'all. Bear with me here. Anyway, so inside of the Ranger station, we see Gadget like workshopping as per usual, these adjustments to all of her new inventions, particularly, I believe, like a land vehicle of sorts, not a plane, but it does still have a propeller on it. Okay. And as she's like testing this propeller, she actually almost kills Monty, by the way. Like the propeller comes loose and flies directly over his head. No big deal, I guess. She's just like, oh, golly, sorry, Monty. Yeah. Honestly, though, typical day at the Ranger hideout.
I think so.
And so Gadget, she's like apologizing to Monty. She's cleaning up her mess, which thankfully wasn't more of a mess due to Monty's blood being splattered all over her workshop. But as she's cleaning up, we see our fierce co-captains of the Rescue Rangers, Chip and Dale, enter the workshop. And these two, Chip and Dale, they're already bickering and like shoving one another from the moment that they enter the workshop. Because as I believe you noted in your very first Rescue Rangers episode, Grace, way back when for us, these two, Chip and Dale, they are vying for Gadget's attention.
Oh God.
Yeah, classic, right? Like It doesn't come up much in the episodes, but it's very obvious that Chip and Dale both are like in love with Gadget and just want her to like them, but they only use it as like a serious plot point every now and again. This is one of those times.
Oh, God.
So Chip, he has picked Gadget a flower and he neatly potted it in this like cute little thimble. And Dale has packed this cute little picnic for two. And they're like fighting over who gets to give it to Gadget first. But hilariously, though, when Chip hands her like the thimble of flowers, she thanks him, dumps all the shit out of it, and then is like, oh, I can use this thimble to secure my propeller.
Fuck your present.
I mean, that is the present, I guess. Like, cool, thanks, man. Awesome. You fixed our car or whatever the hell she's working on. And then Gadget like goes up to Dale and takes the picnic basket, like, oh, Dale, that's so thoughtful, having a picnic. And Dale's like, yeah, I know, whatever. But then Gadget turns around and is like, come on, everybody, we're going on a picnic. So
swing and a miss.
Yeah, big swing and a miss. Two big swings and a miss. Friends zone chipmunks. Yeah. But honestly, it would mess up the dynamic of the group anyway.
Workplace romance
never works. Workplace, more like work no.
What? You mean work yes, work no? You said opposite. Work nowhere, workplace.
No, don't date people at work. I really just wanted to see your reaction to like a very corny joke. And I got the reaction that I wanted.
That's a Pavlov's dog reaction. I've been conditioned to react like that to you for all these years.
Anytime Alexis uses that inflection, just like lean in, like what? Huh?
What you talking about?
I just want to use this as an opportunity for anyone who doesn't watch our YouTube videos. If you only listen to our podcast, consider watching our YouTube videos every now and again. Just for not only for that moment, but like it's indicative of all of the general gold reactions that we have to each other's jokes that are sometimes amazing and sometimes like WTF. Mostly my jokes are the WTF jokes. Grace always has good jokes.
But you'll see a lot of eye rolling to each other.
You will. Yes. There's you miss a few things if you're not watching. Keep listening if you like doing that, but tune into our YouTube every now and again as well. Anyway, so the gang, they all pile into this vehicle. I don't know, that Gadget is clearly like still workshopping. Which, okay, let me describe this real quick because I don't know where the fuck they get all these parts from, but it's like a skateboard that it's fan and or battery powered. Like it's got a giant like car battery just sitting on the back of the skateboard and like attached to a fan. I don't know. And then like benches are nailed into the skateboard and like a steering thing. Gadget is a genius, kind of. Anyway, kind of. So they're all driving around, enjoying this picnic. And Chip and Dale are in the back seat, and they actually start to fight over a thimble of lemonade, of all things. And while they're fighting, I forget who, but one of them knocks it out of the other's hands, and it lands on the vehicle's battery, which like spurts out, of course, and then causes the skateboard to kind of just like coast to a stop in the middle of the big, bad, dangerous city. These rodents could get run over. They could get smushed. Who knows? Anyway, so they jump out of the vehicle and they're like, okay, well, we need to find some parts to fix it. So they pull the vehicle. I'm just going to keep calling it that because I don't know what the fuck it is. They pull it into an alley to like start rummaging around, I guess like a trash can or something, just looking for any spare parts. And as Gadget is looking, she's like pulling stuff out of these boxes. She actually taps or like bumps into this napping rat who, to be honest, looks like the 80s Brad Pitt of the rodent world.
Oh my God, does she fall in love with him immediately?
Yes, she does. I'll get to it in a moment. This is the best B-plot. Yeah. So he's tall. He's taller than all the other rats, aka Monty and Gadget. He has these like I'm not going to lie, stunningly beautiful blue eyes. I know it's a cartoon and I know it's a rat, but the color that they use for his eyes are amazing. And he's got like some nice kind of shaggy, like, I don't really care how I style it, like sandy blonde hair. Yeah, like that surfer vibe. And he's got this floor length white lab coat / like maybe trench coat on.
Okay.
And so when Gadget accidentally wakes him up, he seems very, he seems startled, but he also just seems like lost and confused, like he just woke up from like a 15-hour nap or something. Like where honestly how I felt this morning, not gonna lie.
He finally woke up.
Looking around, yeah, it's like, oh, what bus hit me last night? Who am I? Where? Oh my God, I need to work.
Also,
anyway.
My first thought of like him waking up confused is like Gadget being like, I can fix you. I will save you.
I was in a cult once. I know how to fix and save people.
Oh, I know how to get you found.
Yeah. Come, you belong. Go back and listen to like our episode from last week. I think if you're wondering what we're talking about. Anyway, so the rat, he starts talking to Gadget. Again, he seems lost and confused, but as he's kind of like bumbling his way through an introduction of sorts, like, where am I? Who am I? He does eventually come around to say that his name is Sparky, or at least that's what everyone else calls him. Mm-hmm. So way to like not think for yourself and honestly just go by like, dude, if everyone else jumped off a bridge, would you do that too?
I mean, he's like so chill, man, that like, I guess whatever.
It's whatever. I was just sleeping in this trash can, dude. It's whatever.
Like, whatever, bro.
Yes. And so Monty comes in to introduce himself. And as he reaches out to shake Sparky's hand, you guessed it, Sparky viciously electrocutes and shocks Monty like on sight. And so Sparky apologizes, and honestly, with like, he's got this kind of weirdly satisfying grin on his face. Like he's like, yeah, you saw what I just did there, didn't you? And he tells the rescue rangers that he's a lab rat who specializes in electrified mazes and shock therapy.
Wait, also and so, hilarious.
Hold on. I was like, don't let me get to it. Oh, yeah, he is a lab rat, though, which is like, yeah, the lab coat and everything.
Of like, lab rat, I work in a lab, but also lab rat. Like,
but I'm a lab rat. Okay, I thought you were going to say something else, but yeah.
Okay. Oh, God.
I was like, hold on, I have a very funny thing I have added in here. So anyway, very quickly, Sparky, he apologizes. And Gadget, she's like not at all worried about Monty's health or safety, like the fact that he just got very dangerously electrocuted, because she's immediately just like, wow, you work in a lab?
Oh my
and
God.
Sparky's like, yeah, I guess. But actually, like, he's having these weird, like, memory lapses and is, like, very confused because he's clearly, like, going through electroshock therapy pretty much every time.
To say, but I'll let you keep going.
Yeah. And so he continues bumbling through this exchange with Gadget. But dear audience, this is my first bit of wild speculation for today's episode. Okay. I believe that Sparky is actually none other than a multiversal version of Elmo's Butter Spark, aka Megavolt from Darkwing Duck, aka a rat who has the ability to generate electricity and was a giant science nerd. AKA, if you have no idea what I'm talking about, go back and listen to our episode.
Our last Darkwing Duck episode.
Darkwing Duck in the Wrong Cartoon. Yeah, where I discussed Megavolt's origin story. So yeah, somehow Megavolt and all of his manipulation of electricity figured out how to open a portal to another reality. He stepped right in and
he's like way cooler.
Yeah, he's way cooler. He still has his hair. It's like sandy blonde now instead of like brown. He's got like nice, pretty eyes. Yeah. So Elmo's Butter Spark, he's a multiversal version of Sparky. We're saying that now. It's canon. Okay. We know that Darkwing Duck and Rescue
blow up to Sparky.
Just Sparky. Yes. He's like, you know what? I'm going to cut off all those other parts of my name. I'm reinventing myself in this new city with new animals who fight crime.
Wow, this is the best crossover I could have ever asked for.
Oh man, and this was the first reason. Well, no, the title alone was the first reason why I was excited to do the episode. But then once I saw that, I was like, oh, well, there's no question now. I got to just power through it. Hopefully it doesn't go downhill from here because I'm doing it, like writing as I'm watching.
Sticking with it.
This is it. So anyway, Chip and Dale, they swoop into the conversation and they try to pull Gadget away, reminding her that they need to fix the Ranger mobile. And Sparky then offers to help fix the vehicle. He's like, hey, I'm a lab rat. I know science. I can do this. And so he just like jumps up on it and does this like with his hands like and like touches the battery. And everything, though, starts running again. So everyone's actually kind of amazed, like, whoa, this dude truly does have superpowers. It's not just some, random coincidence that he happened to almost kill Monty, who, by the way, Monty's almost died twice today. So.
I was going to say, we should start a counter. How often does Monty almost die this episode?
There's at least one other time. So
good.
Anyway, after this, Gadget, she is taken away, like off of her feet, crushing hard on this new friend who they just found sleeping in a garbage can in the alleyway. Who also has, sounds super safe, who also has powerful and dangerous superpowers. No big deal. Sounds like someone you want to be besties with. And she actually invites Sparky back to the Ranger hideout and is like, slow down. Girl, Sparky's off for it. And so she's showing him around her workshop, showing off all these new creations. And Sparky's pretty impressed by her works, but he's like offering some modest feedback. Like, well, if you did like this little thing, then it would be so much higher powered, this invention. And in doing this, obviously, Gadget is like even more impressed, like, oh, you're so smart. You're so right. I love it. And Chip and Dale are like in the background, angrily grumbling, like, stupid Sparky. Why is he here? And so Gadget, she briefly steps away for a second from her workshop to clean something up elsewhere. I think Dale probably fucked something up out in the hallway or whatever. Yeah. And they're like, oh, okay, I'll go clean that up. And while she's out there cleaning that, Monty, at the same time, actually, his tea kettle in the kitchen happens to begin whistling. So Monty's like, oh, I gotta go get my tea. I'll be back in a minute. Because, of course, Monty drinks tea, whatever. I mean, honestly, I'm really not that surprised, but whatever.
Yeah.
And so as the whistle is going off, Sparky immediately enters this like trance hypnosis mind control kind of state, and he just mindlessly starts to like saunter, just like slowly walking towards some of Gadget's inventions and just like touches them and like destroys all of them with his like electric powers. But Chip and Dale were the only ones in there because Monty and Zipper are in the kitchen and Gadget's out cleaning up whatever thing Dale messed up. And so when Gadget comes back in and Monty and all them come back in, they're like, well, what the hell is this? What did you guys do? They obviously blame it on Chip and Dale because they're always messing up her. Well, all of them mess up the inventions. But in this case, it looked like it was them. Right. And they're like, no, it was Sparky. We literally just saw him do it. And Sparky kind of like instantly snaps back out of it. But they're like, dude, explain to them that you broke all this stuff, not us. And Sparky's like, what? I don't know what you're talking about. He's in this total trance still, very confused, not knowing where he is. He just totally fogs out. And so Gadget is like, fuck this. I just cleaned up your mess in the hallway. You guys clean up this mess so that I can go with Sparky and see his lab and spend some time with him. So Chip and Dale are even more pissed now. So the next scene we see Sparky's lab, and he's showing Gadget around and introducing her to all of the other like lab mates and test subjects. Let's be real. And in particular, he introduces her to Buzz, a cute little guinea pig who also has a red sweatband and a red tank top on. Interesting. Okay. Yes. But he is adorable. He's like he's very positive and very like energetic, just adorable little guinea pig, not gerbil. Mm-hmm. And Sparky and Buzz, while they're there showing Gadget around, they're like, well, do you want to see like a demonstration of the stuff that we do? Like these maze runs. I can't talk, work brain, that we go through and that we're so trained in. And Gadget's like, oh my God, yes, I would love to see what all this groundbreaking work you're doing is about. And so Sparky and Buzz explain that in order to run through the maze, they have to use motivators. Like I said earlier, you brought up the word and you said food motivated too. I love it. So real quick. That's what I am. Food motivated 100% of the time. I'm actually going to try to finish this in the next 5 minutes so I can have dinner. It's my motivation to get through this script, having dinner tonight. So real quick, talking about classical conditioning again, going to use some big words again, apologize, but here we go. In terms of classical conditioning, the motivator, as Grace hinted at before, it's one of the many factors that determine how quickly or slowly an animal is conditioned. And so it can regulate the intensity of behaviors that facilitate reaching a goal, or like the amount of time and energy that an individual or an animal is willing to expend to achieve a goal. Okay. So in this case, if someone, puts a treat out for a starving animal, it's going to be a lot more motivated to do something than if they put, like a stick out for a starving animal, like let's say a dog in particular, because some dogs may want to play fetch or something, right? Well, they're going to run and get the food a lot faster than running to get the stick because they're more motivated. They're more motivated to eat than they are to play. That's like a super dumbed down explanation of that. Yeah. Anyway, in other words, so Sparky, he presses different buttons that are making like all of these different noises. I don't know. Essentially, though, the noises trigger or motivate Buzz to do a certain thing. So, for example, when Sparky presses a button that like lets out this bell noise, Buzz instantly goes into this like super soldier at attention, like ready to comply mode. Like, also, they're experimenting on each other. Yeah, at this point, only because the professor's not there. They only do this when he's not around. Okay, I've got some concerns. I do too, that these animals are using all of this lab equipment and anyway. And so then when Sparky presses another button that sounds off an alarm type of sound, Buzz is motivated to follow the alarm because it tells him where to go. So he'll run through the maze like after the sound of this alarm, essentially. So the bell is what puts him into this like hypnotic, like mind control state. And the alarm is what he's following as he's making his way through the maze. Okay. So Buzz runs through the maze pretty much mindlessly in this hypnotic state. As I said, just like no care at all. Just boom, where's the alarm? Follow it. And funny enough, the entire time that Gadget's been hanging out in this lab with Sparky, it turns out actually that the rest of the rescue rangers actually followed her there. Which not only is this creepy and weird, desperate. But it's very desperate, but it means they likely did not clean up the mess in her workshop. She's going to come back and be so pissed. Yeah, they can't use the Ranger mobile. A nice night out. A nice night out. Boo. And Monty is telling Chip and Dale that too. So to be fair, Chip and Dale snuck behind her first and Monty was then following them. And he's like, what are you doing here? Our little Gadget's finding love, whatever. I feel like I'm slightly getting better with an Australian accent. He's going. I'm trying. Maybe. Australians listening are like, not at all. We've been banned in Australia. Yeah, that's all good. I'll keep doing it then. It's definitely getting better. And if you notice, I don't even try to do one. So like full credit to you. Thank you. I guess I just don't mind sounding super stupid. Anyway, so trying to like fast talk there, so the rest of the rescue rangers are in there and they're like talking and yelling so loudly they accidentally like knock over shit and Gadget immediately sees them.
Oh my God.
So they're all trying to like fast talk their way out of the awkwardness of Gadget thinking like, did you follow me here? What the hell? And they're like, no. We just heard about this maze and we wanted to try it out too. Okay. It's like, okay, whatever. Very bad lie. But unfortunately, at least Sparky and Buzz fall for it. Gadget's like, really? But Sparky and Buzz are like, all right, awesome. Come on, let's go. So they like throw all the boys into the maze. And they do it. There's some shenanigans in there. Watch the episode. It's pretty funny, but like not super integral to the plot. Anyway, so right as they're finishing this maze, which they didn't finish it very well, by the way, but they did finish it. Sparky is like, oh my God, I hear the professor coming. Everyone, you have to run and hide, like get in your cage. And so just as the rodents scatter, Gadget notices who the professor who walks into the lab is. And she's very kind of not frightened, but shocked to see that Sparky and Buzz are lab animals for the evil scientist, Professor Norton Nimnol, who happens to be another one of the Rescue Rangers' biggest arch enemies. I would say it's like Fat Cat on top, maybe Nimnol right underneath him, and then like a couple others after that. Norton Nimnol, he's in a lot of episodes, and he is literally always thwarted by the Rescue Rangers. So the Rescue Rangers are like, oh shit, hide. He cannot know that we're here. And so let me describe this dude real quick. He is a short, balding, but like still like red hair on the sides and like thick red mustache, white coat, bifocals, probably as thick as his mustache, and also voiced by Jim Cummings. LOL.
That's it all.
I think he voices all the villains in this show, honestly, or like the majority of them. He voices all of the recurring villains, I'm pretty sure. But anyway, so as Professor or Dr. Nimnol enters the lab, he's like laughing and talking to himself as per usual with crazed evil villains. Saying that he'd like to take another trip to the bank to study money matters because to him, only money matters. Hey, that was better than my joke earlier about the workplace, got to admit. And Nimnol's joke wasn't that good, so what does that say about mine?
No, we're not professional writers for a TV show, so we don't
comedians.
Jokes.
Yeah. I'm sure that like two people watching this, if it were on TV, would have laughed at my workplace joke. Literally,
I'm sure more
two people
laughed than I did.
The Nielsen rating, it's like, oh yeah, we noticed that people started looking away from the screen right after you made that joke.
But they all came back at the money matters joke.
Yeah, exactly. Weirdly enough. So Sparky is telling everyone that, they need to run and hide, and Chip and Dale are like, okay, yeah, cool. We'll hide and get out of here. But by the way, why are you working for the evil scientist, Dr. Nimnol? And Sparky, blinded by science, is like, oh, Nimnol, he's a genius. He's not evil. He would never use his powers for evil because, trust me, bro, Nimnol told me himself, essentially, is his reasoning. And so Chip and Dale, they're like rolling their eyes like, this dude's so naive. Something's not right here. But they are like, well, regardless of why he's working for him, we need to get the fuck out because he can't see us here. So the Rescue Rangers all leave and they get out of there. And just as they leave, actually, Nimnol like reaches for Sparky's and Buzz's cages. Ooh. And he's like, ooh, okay, time to do something with y'all. But interesting. Well, okay, I'll keep going. I'll go back to what the Rescue Rangers are saying in a second. But so Nimnol, he pulls this white cloth off of this giant machine in the lab. And underneath, we see the robotic guinea pig that was crashing into the bank at the beginning of today's episode. And he like opens up the head of this thing, of this robot, and he just plops Buzz, the real life or the animal guinea pig, animated animal guinea pig, into the skull, and he places this like weird little mechanized helmet onto Buzz's head, which also, by the way, the inside of the skull is like this adorable but also diabolical looking control room, because everything is like guinea pig size, but there's like flashing lights and buttons. Yeah, it's so cute, but also going to be used for evil anyway. Yeah. So as he's putting Buzz into this robot, he's explaining the technology behind his evil genius creation. Classic villain monologue, saying essentially, no more electronic robot brains to fizzle my plans. Thanks to my behavioral modifications, I have real brains that act like robots. That sounds feasible. Anyway, and so he then presses a button on a handheld remote control that sends a shock through Buzz's body and puts him into that mind-controlled, like super soldier state as he's essentially strapped down or like helmeted, connected by helmet to this robot guinea pigs. Penny gigs. What's a penny gig? Anyway, so he's strapped into this guinea pig's brain. And the rescue rangers, like, they kind of see this from like the door, all of this happening. Gadget at first is like, no, like we can trust them. It's all good. Like, girl, take off the love goggles. Yeah. But take them off. Use some sense here. But she's like, I can prove that we can at least trust Sparky. Like, let's just figure out what's going on. Clearly Nimnal's abusing them or whatever.
Bro, we've all tried to make excuses for the hot guy.
Always. Damn you, Brad Pitt looking rat. How dare you? So at least I'm not saying a rat looking Brad Pitt. Anyway, then we get sued by Brad Pitt.
That phrase.
Yeah. And so, yeah, they start to see Nimnal, controlling this robot a little bit. And then Gadget's like, okay, well, the machine's going to allow Buzz to control it, or like the helmet that he's strapped into is going to allow Buzz to control this machine and navigate through things just like he did in the maze while he was mind controlled. So while Buzz is in this robot, Nimnal, he again picks up Sparky's cage and is like, come, my little furry friend. It's time to show off my genius to the undeserving world once again. Once again. This dude's been burned before. Yeah, the second time. And very quickly now, audience, I'm going to do some more wild speculation here. Let's wildly speculate about where Nimnal comes from. What's this dude's story? Ooh. Well, I think that Professor Nimnal used to work before going solo, doing his own research. I believe that he used to work for MIT as a research partner with, let's just say, perhaps the future CEO of Boston Dynamics. As I noted before, Boston Dynamics founded in 1992. This episode of Rescue Rangers came out in 1989, so we assume it takes place in 1989, only a few years before Boston Dynamics. Anyway, it was founded anyway. I believe. Okay. I'm not going to use the name of the founder of Boston Dynamics. In fact, maybe it wasn't even Boston Dynamics, a similar / adjacent company. I don't want any defamation.
I was going to make a little like Boston local joke of like naming other cities in Boston, but then I was like, you didn't live in Boston.
I wouldn't know. It
wouldn't be as fun.
I mean, maybe.
The West Roxbury Dynamics.
Sure. I was going to say like the Lowell, although I guess that's Massachusetts, not like more large. Anyway, so I believe that these two worked in a research lab together at MIT in the earlier days of their career. And at one point, they were assigned to work on a project together that would eventually be presented to the higher-ups in their department. And they decided, all right, well, let's do something very cutting edge. It's almost the 90s. We're trying out new technology, whatever. And so they were both always very interested in mimicking animals' physical abilities into robotics. So excited to finally have the opportunity to work together, the two agreed to focus on this area in their research and overall design project. Thus, they ended up spending months years, even working together closely, becoming dear friends and trusted colleagues. Cue like montage of them like joking around as they do like equations and stuff and like looking like,
also,
sure?
I need to say, for some reason, I know this is going off of your wild speculation, but like in my mind, they also like, because you're like colleagues to friends, and my head was like to lovers. They're like doing like the chalk and like it like gets on like someone's nose and they wipe like, it off. As they're like doing like equations for like robotic police dogs,
and, like military force,
like the police
dogs.
State.
Yeah, exactly. Like bringing each other flowers and stuff. Like, no.
It's still montage form.
As I was writing this too, I was like, I better stop there. I don't want to make it seem like these two are going to fall in love. Not that they couldn't. Yeah. I'm glad you did though, because I was like, she's probably going to read that into this somehow. But no, it's okay. I mean, honestly, actually, maybe it would make this wild speculation even better. But I was still like, nah, we'll talk about them being just like very, very like super close work colleagues, especially in the scientific field when you're working on like inventions and stuff together. I assume you get close to your colleagues, whatever. But anyway, so as they continue to workshop ideas about the ways to best design this robotic feat, the future CEO, who literally I'm naming for the purpose of this wild speculation, future CEO.
Oh, I thought you were like gonna name him.
No,
name drop.
No, not gonna name him. Anyway, he began to realize that the best way, and again, this is the future CEO who is coming up with this idea. He began to realize that the best way to control this kind of robot would be to actually use the mind of an animal itself, thus making the movements and the actions of the robot much more lifelike. And you see, I said it before, Nimno, he's kind of like a twerpy looking guy. He's short, a little stocky. I guess now he's balding, but back then he probably actually just had like a red afro rather than like balding.
Spider-Spark?
Yes, like Spider-Spark, right? So he wasn't, and he's a little eccentric too, and he's a little he doesn't like to admit when he's wrong. He likes to take credit for as many things as he can because he's pretty smart. So like he does typically get things right, but like his colleagues aren't super keen on that. So as a pretty geeky, short and eccentric redhead, it was always difficult for him. No offense to redheads. It was always difficult for him to find friends, let alone with anyone with whom he figuratively saw eye to eye, AKA like they had very similar, figuratively. He's like, I'm way down here, but you're up here, but we both have the same research interests. I love it. And so without a second thought, Nimnol is like, oh, absolutely. I totally agree. We should go down this path with our research. Let's get some animals and start testing them. And he threw himself into this understanding that, he threw himself into understanding the science behind this creation. And so they started to revise their design plans in order to focus more on creating a robot to be powered by animals. And they were like, oh, we can integrate Pavlovian classical conditioning into the equation in order to condition animals to act on command. Again, taking some creative liberties with classical conditioning and the purpose of it, but in a way, cool. We'll go with it. We'll roll with it for the purpose of Chippendale. And so, of course, the research, it was kept very close to their chest. One, because Nimnol was like, I don't like any of these people and they don't like me. And the future CEO was like, you're right. We've got some cutting edge ideas here. They're going to try to steal them from us. So they held that stuff close to the chest and they would just like tell their managers like, yeah, things are going great. We're making good progress, all that, as they were giving like benchmark updates. They're like, we're going to wait till the final reveal to really show this thing off to the board and to the deans, whatever. And so this little secret between the blooming besties, it began to take shape. And Nimnol maybe became even more excited about the research and maybe a little bit too committed to making his dear friend, future CEO, proud. And who knew? Like, I think that he kind of had this idea that maybe the design would allow the two to one day like run away from this dank, dark basement lab at MIT and start their own company, perhaps focused on animal robotics. who knows, maybe in 1992, they'd get back together and start a company. And so the day of the research presentation came around, and unfortunately, it did not go as Dr. Nimnol nor as future CEO would have dreamt or preferred.
Ooh.
In fact, as soon as the duo began explaining the controls behind their new robotic designs, i.e. live animals, like as soon as they were telling the board, like, listen, we have created robots that are not powered by computers, but by animals themselves. All the higher ups thought they were joking and just started to laugh in their faces because saying that idea out loud sounds fucking ridiculous. And as I noted before, very not feasible. Training all of those animals, torturing all of those animals, perhaps. That's not going to look good on a university's record. So
burn those papers.
Burn those designs, all of it, everything, get rid of it. So Nimnol, he's like trying to calm down the audience, like, no, we're not joking. This is real. And he's like whispering assurances to future CEO, like, it's okay. Like they'll understand us. Just let's get through this. But this future CEO, utterly embarrassed by this debacle, realizing immediately, like looking down at Nimnol, like, wait a minute, you're such a nerd. Why am I friends with you?
Oh my God, led to betrayal.
Ooh, huge betrayal. Future CEO jumped ship, and he blamed the idea entirely on Nimnol, saying, this was his idea. Look, I tried to stop him. I tried to convince Nimnol to like slow down, change the research methodology, change the general design of the robots. But Nimnol insisted that we take this route. You guys know how he is. He's eccentric. He's crazy.
So under the bus.
What the fuck? And so Nimnol, obviously shocked about this straight up turncoat from the future CEO. He's like unable to speak up for himself. Again, little short, stocky, kind of awkward dude. And he also, to be fair, can't deny that he wasn't fully committed to this robotics design. And again, he loves taking credit for things. So he like kind of had fallen under this delusional idea that like, we came up at least with the idea together. Like, I think I said it first, maybe even not him. So he's like in this delusional state and also just like doesn't have the ability to fend for himself. And so after realizing that this absolutely ridiculous and ethically red zone design was created with precious university dollars, the board immediately asked for Nimnol's resignation. He was not tenured. I guess he wasn't a professor at that. Well, he was a professor at that time. My bad. So,
but not tenured.
He wasn't tenured. Or even if he was, essentially, they were like, this is enough of a reason to get rid of you because, again, you're suggesting that we spend university money to torture animals.
Yeah, it's not
for the military. Not a great look. So, and then meanwhile, though, future CEO, he was just merely put on like paid administrative leave for a couple of weeks for not reporting Nimnol's abuse of research funds to the higher ups sooner. So Nimnol, he's a social and scientific pariah now. He can't find any steady work or any research opportunities in light of these stains on his resume. And as some years went by of working odd job after odd job, like repairing cars and just like household appliances for neighbors, Nimnol finally decided that he needed to return to science. He needed to return to some of the research that he loved. And the first project that he wanted to jump back into was these animal-powered robots. But he just needed a way to finance it. So he tried pitching ideas to investors after tweaking and updating his designs a bit. But each investor essentially laughed him out of their boardrooms. Like,
rightfully so.
Like, exactly. Isn't this why you got fired, dude? Why would we want anything to do with it?
Right, exactly.
And so at this point, Nimnol, he's tired, he's hungry, he's out of options. And one day, while he like sadly crouched and hungry, huddled up in his busted studio apartment in the city, he begins talking to one of his trusted lab animals, which he actually happened to sneak out of the MIT lab years before. Like, fine, if they won't take my design, at least I'll take the rodent that helped us build it. And unfortunately, this little rodent, this rat, is now Nimnol's closest friend.
Yikes.
So while he's talking to the lab rat about how easy life is for it, saying things like, oh, you rat, you can just go and grab food for wherever and no one's going to chase you. You don't have to worry about bills, etc. He pauses mid-sentence and like gets a light bulb. And he's like, what if I just train you to go get food for me? Like, at least only until I can get back up on my feet and like, take care of myself again. I mean, or you could also get other things for me too, right? And so he began testing the limits, sending this lab rat out to steal modest amounts of food from like nearby bodegas and pizza joints and stuff like that. But he increasingly became power hungry, seeing how well these these petty larceny charges were turning out. And so he keeps sending the rat out to like take a little bit more every time, right? So the next time he's like, oh, actually, go ahead and just you see that lady sitting on the bench across the street? She's not really looking at her purse. Just take all of her money out of there. And so he does his little conditioning, controls, whatever, sets off the bell, and the rat just zooms out, gets her shit, comes back up, and Nimnol's like $50 richer. Cool. Nice. Every now and again, he's like, go to that auto shop down the street, steal these parts so I can update the machine, whatever, update the robots, the usual stuff that a scientist might need to steal. And so besides like patents and whatnot. Anyway, and so Nimnol, he remains like very convinced and very dedicated that he will be able to receive more funding for his creations. And in his mind, again, pretty delusional and eccentric, his thought is maybe if I just show them that I've made more robots and that I've trained more animals to like be ready to jump into action as soon as you purchase it, then maybe they'll be willing to invest in my product. Yeah, I don't know, dude. It sounds like you're asking people to invest in something that needs more investment down the road.
Is this an MLM?
Yeah. All you have to do is recruit 2 more of your investor friends and then ask them to recruit 4 of their investor friends. And then they can make $13,000 a year. Funny story, tangent to my wild speculation here. For some reason, me and my brother Aaron, I hope he's listening right now, we have this weird obsession with multi-level marketing. For people who don't know, MLM means, and essentially like pyramid schemes. I don't know why, like we've watched so many videos on like how to spot them and just like what they are. It's
fascinating.
It's super fascinating. It's bad. It is actually in some ways very close to our cult obsession as well.
Crime caper.
It should. There are a lot of great MLMs that we could talk about who have been busted, and there actually have been some MLMs who have been like charged of cult activity, or like maybe like pseudo MLMs. Yeah. So anyway,
that's gonna be some crime caper.
That's a crime caper right there. Yes. Anyway,
we didn't even know it.
We didn't. Love it. So Nimnol's like, let me just build like 100 more of these robots. Oh. But and able to do that, though, he's going to need a lot more money. So he knows that he's going to have to up his game. He can't just keep like stealing from old ladies' purses. That'll only get him so far. He's like, okay, well, I mean, I could just steal it from a bank. Like they don't need all that money, do they? I do. I need these robots working. Great. And so he begins training or torturing, training these animals so that he could further pursue this research that clearly no one else wanted to fund because of how batshit insane it was. And that brings us out of our wild speculation and back to the real episode of Rescue Rangers.
Amazing.
Again, recap of where we were. We've got Buzz all queued up in this giant guinea pig looking robot, and Nimnol has just left the lab with Sparky, who is in the cage, and he's saying that it's time to show off his genius to the undeserving world once again. LOL. Again. So Chip and Dale, they tell Gadget to stay back at the lab and examine the machine while they go follow Nimnol and Sparky. And the scene then cuts to like outside of the bank. And we see Nimnal like peeking his head around the corner of the bank, honestly looking like very, very sketchy. Not to, like, does anyone see me? And he like awkwardly runs into the bank with this rat cage.
Terrifying.
And inside of the bank, there's like a long line of folks who are just like waiting to, I don't know, deposit or get their money. And the bell for closing time rings or whatever, like the bank manager is like, all right, everyone, we're closing up, time to go. And you see like this wave of people in line just like starting to exit the building. And Nimnal is still just standing there, like looking all sketchy by the desk. Like, is everyone gone? By himself as everyone walks out. And he just like throws Sparky's cage underneath the teller's desk and then does this awkward flailing run out of the bank.
Arrest him right now.
Right now. This dude is obviously, something's off. Something's off. And so meanwhile, back at the lab, Gadget is inspecting the robot. She notes that Buzz looks like he's ready to do the maze. Like he's got that same look of intensity in his eyes as he did before they did the demo earlier. And so Gadget's like, okay, but he looks like he's doing the maze. But this time, what is the maze? This robot can't fit in the maze. And somehow, I'm not sure how they piece it all together so quickly, but they deduce that the maze from earlier is actually a model of the city's sewer system. And Gadget's like, oh my gosh, he's been training to run through this maze as if it were the sewers. So he's going to try to get to something that's like at the end of this sewer line or like whatever adjacent according to the maze.
Yeah.
And so then we go back to the bank. It's like this dual like split shot thing. Like, okay, what's Gadget figuring out at the lab and what are Chip and Dale figuring out at the bank? And so back at the bank, Chip and Dale, they've gotten there. They're looking around for Sparky and they note that they saw Nimnal leaving without him. So they're like, well, he's got to be in here somewhere and he's got to be doing the bidding of Nimnal if Nimnal just dropped him off and darted his awkward run. I have to keep doing it. It's so funny. You will laugh when you see it. It's very funny. But as they're wondering, where Nimnal might have gone and where Sparky is, the phone in the bank starts to ring again. But this time, unfortunately, and I don't actually, it seems unreasonably now since bank robberies have been happening, there is no security guard around to answer. So Chip and Dale take it upon themselves to answer the phone. But
what if it had been like actually someone calling and all they heard was like, squeak, 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 squeak.
Actually, so I did, we were joking about this earlier. Even though I wrote it down, I did actually just mix that up. They don't answer the phone. No, it's fine. But anyway, that would still be funny because that's exactly what happened. The phone actually goes to voicemail. My bad. And well, very funnily though, I want to say before the phone hits voicemail, you see the camera shows like outside of the bank and we see Professor Nimnal outside in a payphone, literally across the street from the bank.
He's such a bad criminal.
He's so bad at this. He runs out of there all intensely just to go literally across the street and he gets in a payphone, dials it to call the bank right across the street. And after the phone does like the leave your message at the tone, he's in the phone booth talking to himself like, banking by phone. What will I think of next? Like, dude, you're on voicemail. They're gonna listen to your voice and track you down. Not only are you right across the street.
Realize, that you're on the phone. They're gonna fingerprint it.
Yeah, the lady just told you to leave the message, and you're in there just talking to yourself. What are you doing?
He's not smart.
Anyway, so after he's done doing his little villain monologue, he loudly blows a whistle into the phone line. But back in the bank, Chip and Dale notice Sparky instantly enter this hypnotic state. He starts mindlessly wandering around the bank after hearing this whistle over the phone line. And so Chip and Dale They try to call out to him. They're like, hey, dude, stop. What the fuck are you doing? But they're shocked when he just like walks right by them and keeps mindlessly moving throughout the building. And so they follow him around. They like climb as he climbs up this nearby bank alarm, and he starts to like pull the plugs out of it, and it starts to set the bank alarm off.
Ooh.
Yeah. And so Chip and Dale, they're like standing behind him, like, what are you doing? Why are you here? But he's clearly not responding to them. So they deduce, like, well, if Nimnal wants the alarm on, then we know that we should probably try to turn it off. We don't know what's going on, but we should just do the opposite of what Sparky's doing. So they try to turn it back on, or sorry, they try to turn it off, but of course, Sparky's like, no. And he starts to actually like attack them. Like he threatens to hit them with his electricity powers. Ooh. But using some quick thinking, Chip actually like, and kind of creepily, Chip pulls a picture of Gadget out of his jacket. And holds it up to Sparky, and he's like, come on, think of Gadget. If you hurt us, then you're going to hurt Gadget next. You wouldn't do that, right, Sparky? You wouldn't hurt someone you love, right, Sparky?
Whoa.
I'm just like, whoa, back up. They just met today, dude.
Yeah, I was going to say, Sparky's like, I just met her.
Yeah, but actually it works because it snaps him out of his hypnosis. So it's true love. Sparky is in love. Even though he can hardly remember his name, he does remember Gadget. And it's also very funny. Dale is like, hey, where'd you get that picture of her? And Chip is like, where do you think? He's like, oh, he got like Gadget gave it to him, I think is what he was implying, which is very funny because also I don't think he did. I feel like actually he probably just stole it from her bedroom, but like who has a portrait of themselves?
Took the picture and printed it creepily himself.
He has like 30 copies just in case. Like all of his coats lined up in the closet. He has one in every pocket. You never know when you're going to need to pull out a picture of Gadget, right?
I mean, I guess so.
I guess it saved the day, or it's about to save the day here. So back at the lab, we see that Buzz has indeed been triggered into maze run mode by the sound of the alarm going off in the bank, because apparently the sewers between the lab and the bank are connected and not like well insulated or something, because
have that good of hearing.
I guess, I don't know, maybe it's the Buzz does. How could he not? Buzz does. So Monty, Zipper, and Gadget, they're like inspecting it as Buzz starts like, time to run. And they actually fall into the machine because they like open the head of it back up. So they're all like rattling around trying to get Buzz to stop as he's doing his maze run, because he got motivated, LOL, to run into the sewer. And Monty, he's like trying to pull these just like plugs, press buttons, whatever, totally safe to stop Buzz from controlling the robot. But it essentially just causes the robot to go haywire. And it like the robot climbs out of the sewers. And it's very funny. I'm imagining it. It honestly starts like skipping and frolicking in the streets.
It's like it's the AI realizing it's free.
That's what it actually looks like. That's what it looks like. Because it's like this actually, I know I said it's kind of adorable earlier, but like it's kind of a creepy looking robot. Like it's got like sharp teeth and it's a robot. It's like metal. I don't know. It looks creepy. Precious. So even though it has like a sweatband and a tank top on, you just see it like frolicking in the streets. It's like terrifying robot. And then it like starts running up buildings and stuff like that. Just like totally going haywire. Like Monty definitely short-circuited this thing one way or another. But eventually it scales up one side of a building and then scales back down, right back into a sewer. So they just end up right back where they started. And so, meanwhile, back at the bank, Sparky, he's awoken from his hypnotic state due to seeing the lovely picture of Gadget. And he's asking Chip and Dale what they're all doing there. And Chip and Dale are like, dude, we don't have time for games. Like something bad's about to happen. Something's about to pop up in here or whatever. Like you're working for Nimnal. But before they can really like explain what they think is going on or like ask Sparky even what is going on, the ground beneath them again begins to rumble. And yet again, the giant robotic guinea pig crashes through the flooring and right into the bank in front of the rescue rangers. And the skull of the robot opens up. And of course, though, out pops like Monty, Gadget, and Zipper, like, hey guys,
we're here.
Okay, cool. Nice seeing you here, I guess. Okay. And they so they get out, those three get out. And unfortunately, though, the robot is still under Buzz's control. Mm-hmm. And so the robot, even though the others have escaped, it starts hurtling towards the bank vault. And it's like, I mentioned the razor sharp teeth earlier, Grace. This thing starts chomping away at like the bank vault door. Yeah. Like, it's actually kind of scary, besides the fact that it's painted to look like an exercising guinea pig. So Sparky is like very, very confused. He's looking around like, what the hell is going on? I just woke up from the robot. Yeah. And Gadget tells Sparky that Nimnol is indeed a crook and that he has programmed Sparky and Buzz to rob banks for him. And so Sparky, absolutely shocked and horrified that his beloved owner, aka torturer, would use science for evil, decides that it is his duty to destroy the robot. But Gadget's like, no, don't do this. You should let the rescue rangers handle it. Chip and Dale are the best at taking care of issues like these. AKA, this looks dangerous. You could get hurt.
Expendables, not you.
Exactly. I want to run off with you after this. I can't do that if you're dead.
This is actually the perfect distraction. We can leave now while they're fighting it.
We know that Gadget is prone to just like slowly back out of like life-threatening situations. Again, go back and listen to last week's Rescue Rangers episode to figure out what we're talking about. So Chip and Dale, they're excited about Gadget's words of praise. Like, oh my God, she does love us. Wow.
She's like,
when really she's like, yeah, go ahead. Sparky, grab your bags. Pack your bags. So they decide, Chip and Dale, they're like, ooh, I know what we can do. We can get Buzz's attention by setting off a different alarm and sending him in a different direction. So they get a clock off of a nearby desk. They set off the clock alarm and they start just like hot potatoing it around the bank because they're like, oh shit, well, now that we shut it off, fuck, he's going to chase after us.
He's coming after us. Yep.
But eventually they all run out of the bank and Buzz follows them and the robot still. So you've got the robot like running through the streets again. And I mentioned that Nimnol was right across the street.
Right, I was like, is he just watching the robot like go haywire?
Yes. I was just going to say, Nimnol's like, wait, that shouldn't be happening. So he gets out of the phone booth and then Chip and Dale see him and they're like, just throw the alarm at him. So they like quickly like shove the alarm in Nimnol's like, super smart, in Nimnol's lab coat pocket. And Nimnol is like freaking out because just so much is going on. Like this robot's running at him. The rescue rangers are there, which like has thrown him off because he's like, oh shit, like they're out to get me. These chipmunks are going to get me again. And so he's like not able to get the alarm out of his pocket in time. And then he just like starts getting chased down the road by Buzz and the robotic guinea pig, aka the robotic guinea pig. And so that's the last we see of Nimnol for this episode. So he's still on the loose, by the way.
And still has like Buzz in his capture.
Yeah. Actually, no.
Okay.
So the next day, Buzz and Sparky, or soon after, I don't know when, but Buzz and Sparky, they actually stop by the Ranger hideout to say goodbye. Because the duo has just signed up to do experiments at a new science lab at MIT.
Oh, damn.
Which, good for them, though, by the way, clearly getting a promotion, going from, they actually probably put it on their resume like, hey, we actually worked in a lab for someone who used to work at MIT.
Our reference.
Except don't call him because once you realize who he is, you won't hire.
And his phone is just the payphone across from the bank.
Yeah, that he tried to rob. Very well done. But anyway, so before they can part ways, though, and I should add, sorry, too, Sparky said that like eventually, I think he said the alarm batteries ran out or something, so he was able to like save Buzz, but Nimnol was still like running for his life or whatever. So that's how he was able to save Buzz. But before they can part ways, Sparky asked Chip and Dale why they didn't just run off and leave Sparky at the bank to fend for himself. Like, why don't you guys just turn me in? I was doing some bad shit. And Chip is like, well, we were jealous of you at first, but we saw that Gadget really liked you and we didn't want to get in her way. And Gadget, she's like blushing. She's like,
guys don't call it like that.
Fuck? Yeah. Like, can we talk about this somewhere else, maybe? But anyway, so Gadget's like blushing amid all this attention with like these 3 rodents clearly all vying for her affection. And she tells Chip and Dale, it's like endearingly sad. She's like, oh, you guys are being silly. And she gives them a big old hug and tells them no one could ever replace you, like leaving it super ambiguous as to which one of them she was talking about, which naturally...
And to like replace them as like to what extent?
Yeah, right. No one can ever replace you. Dale,
she's like, as she's hugging them, she's like winking at Sparky.
Is your bag packed?
Did you get the tickets to Aruba?
You? Yeah. We're actually going to go where it's warm. So anyway, yes, the episode ends with Chip and Dale arguing over which of them Gadget was actually complimenting, which one she was talking about. And that's the end.
Oh my God.
Chip and Dale.
Oh my God. That one was a wild episode.
Wasn't it? Oh man. Yeah.
Wow.
I was very happy to do it.
That had everything I didn't know I needed.
Yeah.
Primarily this love, the romance tale.
Love square, I guess.
Yeah. Rodent love, something.
Yeah.
Can I add a wrap-up wild speculation?
Please do.
That I would just like to picture happening, which is that, because this is, like 1989. So again, a couple years before Boston Dynamics was founded, that I like to picture that future CEO, like, had heard about his friend down on his luck in New York City. So he, took Amtrak over from Boston to try and find his friend and be like, look, I've been getting all these investors. Like, I have this great company idea. I think, I'll do some charity and like hire you for my company that's about to blow up in a couple years. And so like right as he's like getting out of the cab, he sees the professor running away from a giant guinea pig. And they just have like this like moment staring at each other, and it just like sits back down in the cab, back in the cab, and just shakes his head
right back to the Amtrak station,
and just rolls up the window as the professor's like, "No, wait."
He's just like rolling up the window and he's slamming on. Drive, please drive fast, Mr. Taxi Cab Driver.
I like that.
That's good.
That scene.
I like that. That's
great. Okay.
Boom. Let's edit this video so you explain that. Joking, don't do that. But yeah, boom. That's the perfect bow to tie up the wild speculation on the backstory of Dr. Nimnol. I also hope that because Dr. Nimnol is in a lot of other episodes, but I think this is like one of 2 that I've seen. So I'm like, I hope that this like kind of has some continuity behind it, that we can use this wild specation in the future for other stories of his. I don't know, probably. Maybe we'll also do multiversal Nimnols. another version of Nimnol who actually didn't work for MIT, but worked for like, I don't know, Stanford or some shit.
And right as Sparky is saying like his goodbyes to Gadget, which I'd like to picture for some reason, like out on the balcony at sunset over Central Park.
They were on the balcony, and I don't know if it was sunset, but yeah.
But now it is. But like right as he's like expressing his love and asking her to come to Boston with him, like somehow the multiverse like snaps him away and he's back to being
Sputterspark with his like 2 strands of hair.
He's talking to a light bulb, which he thinks is Gadget. Go listen to our Darkwing Death.
Actually, the entire episode is just Megavolt having a moment.
All these little like light bulbs are like the different rescue rangers. He was just playing them around.
And like Buzz, yeah. And like the biggest light bulb is Dr. Nimnol. Oh my gosh. Exactly. He's just like going around his lair, like dancing around these light bulbs.
Running like Nimnol.
There is no robot. There is no maze.
Never was.
Never was. What's it? Shutter Island.
I was gonna say even Inception, which is another Leonardo.
I was gonna say Inception movie. At first, yeah, but I was like, no,
spinning top at the very end.
The top is still spinning. The top is still spinning.
It's a combo of Shutter Island and Inception.
Inception.
But Spider Spark is no Leo DiCaprio.
No, unfortunately not. Now, Sparky, though, he is a Brad Pitt.
Hey, okay. Love it.
So yes, another wonderful.
Great job.
Thank you.
That's one of my favorites. Good work.
I agree. It was a fun episode. So yeah. I don't know. So that's it, y'all. I guess until next time, we'll have more. I guess. Oh, we're winding down. We've only got 2 episodes now. If my math is correct, is that right? I don't know. I haven't taken a math. I don't know. Yes. Yeah. Sorry. 2 more episodes of Rescue. 2 more episodes of the podcast, and we're done. That's it. No,
God.
just of Rescue Rangers. So we're winding down. We're gonna pick another show. I think we've picked our next show, and let me tell you, y'all are gonna love it.
Yeah,
I'm saying it right now.
Yeah, it's pretty peak. So
it's pretty peak. But until we get through these last 2 episodes of Rescue Rangers, aka next week, who, Grace, do you think the audience, our dear listeners and viewers, should tell about this dear podcast of ours?
You know, there were so many twists and turns of this episode because it's fun to like sometimes like wrap them into something we brought up. Yeah. There were so many things that happened during this episode.
You tell anyone based on this.
Look at this. But I think the first thing that I thought of, I think that you should, because we were talking about Pavlov, the actual like scientist. I actually, thought he was a psychologist, not a physiologist.
Same, yeah.
So I'm just going to say he's still a psychologist. Tell your psychologist, tell your therapist.
Your therapist.
Yeah. Feel like, something, I'm having a lot of hard times, but one thing that's getting me through, sat more and missed. You should listen to it and recommend it to all your clients.
Yeah, it's all of them. Yeah. Anyone. It's,
Yeah. And who else should they tell?
So I'm doing a quick search to see what a physiologist is.
Yeah, I actually don't know what that means. I was like,
okay,
like therapist.
That's what I thought. I thought it was just kind of like a general doctor. So the branch of physiology is the branch of biology that deals with the normal functions of living organisms and their parts. So it sounds like just like so you're like studying cells and tissues and like the study of life. Got it. So it's a little more intense than like your general practitioner. So I was going to say tell your physiologist, but I don't think people just like have physiologists.
I think like find one.
I think like research institutions maybe do, but not like individual humans. If you have one, like awesome, tell them. But if not, just tell your general practitioner next time for a doctor's appointment. Like, hey, we talked about like some type of medical things on this one episode of Saturday Morning Mystery. Oh, you haven't heard of it? Oh, take that tongue depressor out of my mouth right now, doctor.
Spit it out at them.
Yeah, it's in the face. Listen to the podcast.
Yeah, while you're in recovery for the eye surgery that you'll need after I spit the depressor into your eyeball.
Now you're gonna need an optometrist. You're welcome.
Tell them too.
Tell them while you're there. Yep. I'm sure they'd love it. The hosts wear glasses, so the optometrist can relate.
Exactly, they can relate. Great. Well, see y'all next week.
Until next time.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to Saturday Morning Mysteries.
If you enjoyed this episode, please share, rate, review, leave us a like, and drop a comment. We post episodes every Saturday and bonus tune tangents whenever we feel like it. So please subscribe so you don't miss the shenanigans.
And if you want to follow us on YouTube, click the bell under the YouTube subscribe button to receive notifications when new videos are posted.
And if you want to subscribe to the podcast, we have no idea what you're listening to us on. So just hit the big subscribe button on whatever app you're using. We believe in you.
Give us a follow on Twitter and Instagram at SatmornMist, all the abreves, and let us know if you have any episode or show requests by emailing SaturdayMorningMysteries@gmail.com.
Thanks to Jenna Kendall for the logo design and to Ava Sakiki for the music used during this week's episode.
See y'all groovy kids next week on Saturday Morning Mysteries.